intellectualradio.com, its subsidiaries, or sponsors. Encouraging, educating, and empowering you into action. This is Warriors Talk with your host, Lady ReShell.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we move away from awareness towards action. It's Health and Wellness Monday, and our topic today is the impact of stress on your body. We are live on Intellectual Radio. We just heard from the Drive at 5 with Roman. Keep it locked right here on Intellectual Radio and allow us to feed your brain. On the last episode of Warriors Talk, I discussed parenting a child with type 1 diabetes. Head on over to YouTube, type in Intellectual Radio, and stay connected for any episodes you may have missed. The quote of the day is, "It's not stress that kills us, it's our reaction to it." Here are your trending topics for today. The man who shot and wounded a 16-year-old Ralph Yarl, a Black teenager, after the teen went to the wrong home to pick up his siblings, will face 2 felony charges. Clay County Attorney Zachary Thomas announced earlier this evening the man will face charges of assault in the first degree and armed criminal action. Ralph was picking up his younger brothers when he mistakenly rang the wrong doorbell at the wrong house. He was shot twice. After spending 3 nights in the hospital, Ralph is recovering at home, being cared for by his mom, who is a nurse. At a weekend rally, community and family members marched to demonstrate in front of the man's house, calling for charges to be filed. Protesters marched as they chanted "Justice for Ralph" and "Black Lives Matters," also carrying a sign that read, "Ringing a doorbell is not a crime, and the shooter must do time." Those are your trending topics for today. I am so grateful for my sponsor, Emanuel Church of God in Christ, with Pastor Michael Richardson, who has a special message for us.
Greetings, I am Pastor Michael Richardson.
And I am First Lady Anastasia Richardson from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We're located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And we're inviting you to join us every Sunday morning on Facebook Live at Emanuel COGIC at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And you can also view our videos on our YouTube channel at Emanuel COGIC-MR. Once again, this is Pastor Michael Richardson
and First Lady Anastasia Richardson. And we're from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We are building upon a solid foundation.
I am grateful for my guest on today, who is no stranger to Warriors Talk. She is our healthy solution expert with over 20 years experience as a family physician, and she is impacting lives every single day. Hey, Doc Michelle.
Hello, Lady ReShell. How are you today? Happy Monday.
Yes, happy Monday. Happy cold Monday.
I'm telling you, it's like we're living in 2 different worlds. Last week was beautiful, but it's coming back eventually.
That's Chicago for you. You just expect anything when you leave the house. You leave out one way, come back. The weather has totally changed. But I did enjoy last week. It was really beautiful, really beautiful. Our topic today is the impact of stress on your body. And this is a subject, Dr. Michelle, that I'm sure that we all can identify with. We all have dealt with some type of stress, whether it's great or small. And some of us need to know how to deal with that stress, what that stress does to the body, and not pretend like we're not stressed out. Because some of us be like, no, I'm not stressed. And the inside, your body may be saying something totally different.
Yes. I'm so glad we're talking about this topic, because I think we all can relate to it. And I like what you said in the beginning of the show. It's not really whether or not we have stress, it's how we react to the stress in our lives, because every day there's something that could come, be it, technological issues or family issues or whatever it is, but it's how we react to it and understanding what stress does to our bodies And once we have that understanding, sometimes we'll make it more of a priority to understand our stress and do something about it.
Awesome. So let's just jump right in the conversation and talk about what is distress?
Right. Yeah. So, there's two types of stress, right? So when something happens to us or experience, we feel certain things like our heart rate goes up, we might feel a little uneasy or nervous. And it's that reaction that we call stress, right? But there's different things that cause stress, different types of stress. When we think of something that we call an acute reaction, right? So you're in the car and someone rear ends you, right? That causes you to sort of jump, your heart rate goes up, you might get sweaty. All of those are stress reactions, and that's really short-term stress, right? But that's sort of everyday okay sort of things that can happen. But if you think about someone who drives to work every day, and that's more of a chronic stress because every day they might be in traffic for an hour, and there's other things that come during that drive, going by a 18-wheeler or someone speeding by them, and it's that sort of ongoing stress. Your job, we talk about, if you have a job that's continually stressful. Yes, on our jobs, we have a deadline that might be due. We've got to work on a project, and we work on it because that stress gets us to focus and we get productive. But if it's every day you go to work and you feel, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here, or I'm stressed, or people are making me angry, and that's an ongoing stress that can be bad for us.
Oh, been there, Dr. Michelle. Been
I
there.
think we probably all have. Yes, me as well.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to change your attitude and be like, you know what? I'm only here for a certain amount of hours, and this is not my life. But
Yeah,
it
and
can
that's
stress
true.
you. Hey, Lisa, thank you for tuning in. Let's see what Lisa
Thank you. Hi,
she said.
Lisa.
She says, yes, you're talking about me. My job is not the problem, but the distance that she drives daily is stressful.
Yes, because especially in Chicago, we have one of the largest commuting times for people on average, and we know that that can be a stress, right? So even in the car, we think about, because you mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's how we react to the stress, right? Is it that while you're in that commute that you're listening to your favorite music, or you're, doing an audio book, or sort of still paying attention to the road, but just doing what you can to refocus that stress into something else. Some people, because part of we talk about stress management, is learning something new or doing something different, maybe learning a language while you're in the car for an hour, so we just think about it differently. But
Yeah,
yeah, it can be stressful.
I agree. So I drive an hour every day, and my time, I guess it's maybe the opposite from Lisa. That's like my alone time, my quiet time. Nobody's like calling me, mommy, do this or do that. That's just my time. And I get 2 hours going to work and coming from work, and I enjoy it.
That's a great attitude, and that's a great example, because it's exactly how you look at the situation and how you react to that situation, right? Because if you always worried and think about, oh my gosh, I have a whole hour that I have to sit in traffic, right? Versus the other spectrum of, this is some time that I can have to myself to think, to, really reflect, to listen to music, to do whatever, because in our lives, our daily lives, we do have stress. We're parents, we work, we're caregivers, and all of those things
Yeah,
cause stress.
I could prep for the show while I'm in the car, like listening to, videos and stuff. So it's for me. Now, Lisa, she may be in like stop and go traffic to where, she's got to be just, really alert. But for me, it's like it's a straight shot, and, traffic is not really that bad. So I can see how different individuals can, have stress differently.
Yeah. So as you say. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. She said, going is not the problem. Coming home. Ooh, almost 2 hours, Lisa.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, that's just stressed
Yeah.
me out reading that.
That is very stressful. So think about something that you could do if, as Rochelle said, if you're able, that you would enjoy doing on that ride. Maybe it's getting an audiobook of, something that you always wanted to listen to or read, or music. And I'm sure you probably do a lot of that already. But yeah, it is really how we frame it.
Yeah, I think that's like my therapy, and my long time. It's really like my therapy. Research says stress is a natural human response that prompts us to address challenges and a threat in everyone's lives. Everyone experiences stress to some degree, so we're not exempt at all from stress.
Right, yeah, and really we always go back to the COVID pandemic, right? And we were all feeling stressed for a multitude of reasons, right? Being stuck at home, financial issues, all of that was causing a lot of stress. And
Uncertainty.
yes, and on top of that, then you couldn't get to your doctor and things like that, and so people's health may have deteriorated during that time. And so we're really sort of now coming out of that period. But one of the things that, when we talk about the management of stress, you talk about therapy and the things that we can do to manage some of that.
Well, I know you mentioned two different types of stress. So I have three.
Yep.
I'm sure you've probably heard of all three. So you have
Yes.
acute, and then I think it's pronounced episodic.
Episodic. Mhm.
Episodic acute stress, and then chronic. So I just want to go through them because it tells you the different symptoms, and you was mentioning a lot of them as we were going through it. So you mentioned this one, the acute stress, that's classified as the short-term stress. And you mentioned about like maybe an accident or something you avoid, and it's like that stress of like, oh my God, the accident almost happened. But that stress doesn't stay with you long term.
Right. That's exactly right. It's the long-term stresses that can affect our health even more. But some stress is good, right? When you have that alertness, like, oh my gosh, there's a car coming, right? You can react to it, but it increases your adrenaline and your cortisol in that moment, and that helps us to react, right? Fight or flight. But it's the chronic stress that can cause problems. And even those acute episodic events, like being in the car, every day at a certain time, that can cause that stress to happen. Being at work, healthcare providers who have to deal with stressful things, that can be an acute episode, or it can be a chronic thing every day.
Yeah, that was one of it. It talked about like tight deadlines or people who work in healthcare workers. So that was part of the episodic. And then you talked about the chronic stress. So I just want to get into some of the symptoms that come with it, because maybe some people don't know if it's acute, if it's episodic, or if it's chronic stress. So let's get into the acute stress, which we know is the short-term stress.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about that, right? You're not paying attention to it, but that reaction of the adrenaline and that cortisol causes your pupils to dilate, your hearts to start racing, for you to maybe get a little sweaty. All of that is that sort of fight or flight response, which is good, right? It arms you, you're ready for battle. And so that is the body's way of preparing us for that. Sometimes you can even feel some anxiety, right? Worry or fear or exposure to the stress. But some of that, when you have that short-term stress, right? You feel, oh my gosh, this happened. I'm so worried about maybe getting behind the wheel again. Maybe I feel fear and things like that. But the acute episode is, I feel like that, and then I can come down from it, right? But you can imagine if you felt all of those things and they weren't going away. You have poor sleep here. Poor sleep is really something that happens with chronic stress. And we always talk about the fact that when you are not getting adequate sleep, what that does to our bodies, where it increases your stress hormone, the cortisol, where it causes high blood pressure, it causes weight gain, which then leads to the other things like diabetes and heart disease, right? And so poor sleep can be disrupted by that anxiety, the hormones that are released, that adrenaline and that cortisol, and all of those things together affect us. And again, on the short term, that might be okay if, I was just in a car accident and, oh, I can't sleep tonight because that adrenaline is going still in our bodies, because adrenaline can stick around, for hours and hours. And so that may happen in the short term. But when you get to that continuous stress, that causes a problem.
And so the second one is the symptoms of the episodic acute stress.
The episodic acute stress, right. So we know we can carry tension in our bodies, right? So we talked about driving, an hour to 2 hours, right? And you find yourself gripping the steering wheel, right? And all of that stress then can cause pain. We talk about that too. Feeling overwhelmed, right? We talk about in that episode of driving, or is it that you have these episodes at work that over time is making you feel overwhelmed, that you can't complete the task, or you're more, irritable and snapping at people at work, and or your family at home, right? There's so many different, stress really affects every part of our bodies, right? Those hormones that are released, the adrenaline, the cortisol, the epinephrine, all of those things travel throughout our bodies, right? So you've got here listed migraines, because that adrenaline travels to the blood vessels of not only our head and our brain, but to our heart. People can get chest pain, they can get high blood pressure. And that is the concern when we talk about our overall health and wellness, right? And what we can do. This stress and the bombardment of things all the time. I'm gonna. You started with the story of the young man in Kansas City that was shot, right? So listening to you, I felt like, oh my God, this is horrible. My stress level, I was getting stressed listening to the story, and that's just part of some of the times that we're living in and listening to the news, and especially in our area, we get these sort of acute episodes of news stories or things that are happening, which is an episode, but if it's happening all the time, if every day, then it becomes a chronic stress. If you live in an area, right, that is high crime and things like that, then that episode of something happened then becomes my everyday existence, right? And the things that can happen from that, like weight gain, which is from cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. It causes us to eat more, causes us to not sleep well, and all of those things. And the adrenaline can lead to anxiety and panic attacks. All of that affects our ability to, feel good and have a good life. Chronic headaches, you mentioned migraines, but people have headaches all the time. Emotional fatigue, watching the news every day, people get emotionally fatigued. And even, again, it enters into our conscious and subconscious and causes us to sometimes sleep too much if we get depressed, or not sleep at all because it's always in our minds, right? And we know that chronic stress, not only these symptoms, but it causes increased inflammation in our bodies, right? Because that cortisol causes inflammation, and then that inflammation leads to joint pain and muscle aches, and diabetes is partly inflammation. Cortisol increases our sugar levels, right? So there's so many things that this chronic stress does to us on a daily basis. And we have to really figure out how to manage it. Because in today's world of 24/7 news and everything always coming at us, it's how do we manage it? I like
Lisa,
what Lisa's saying. Yeah.
she said that she was just reading about that and she became angry. On many occasions, she refused to watch or listen to the news because it's so depressing. It's how she keep her sanity.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. It's so true. So sometimes I just turn it off. I can't listen to it. We need to be informed, but it's a lot, right? It is a lot, and we're just hearing about it, but people are living out in those situations on a daily basis. And this is starting from our young kids to our older generation too. So yes, it's always around us, but it's what we do to protect ourselves from that.
Even like social media, it's just so much going on social media. Sometimes you just have to clock out, just like you do the news, and give yourself some time to just like detox yourself from it.
Yeah, because some people think, oh, I'm just going to sit and watch TV, or I'm going to just scroll the internet or whatever, but that can be stressful, right? And so you need to remove yourself from some of that as well, because it's still incoming, maybe negative images or negative stories that can be stressful to us.
So there are consequences that comes with being stressed. You did mention some of them as well. One of them, it says anxiety disorders.
Yes. I mean, I know as a doctor, I've treated people who have anxiety, and sometimes that anxiety comes from the stress of their job. They'd be so worried about, if they were in healthcare, making a mistake, or the responsibilities that come with that job, and they were worried about it all the time. And so it can definitely lead to anxiety and depression. Stress can, and then we'll probably talk about it later, but the things that you can do to help with that, right? Talking to someone, talking to a therapist, doing things like meditation, deep breathing, all of those things can help.
So you mentioned number 2 consequences of stress was depression, and number 3, burnout.
Oh, burnout. A lot of people, especially in the doctor profession, a lot of my colleagues feel a lot of burnout due to the chronic stress, the mental, emotional stress of being at work, and physical exhaustion too. And there's a lot of professionals that are feeling more burnout lately, like healthcare, like teachers, like emergency medical professions. And when you start to feel that way, like, I am so exhausted, I'm so stressed about going to work, that was kind of what we call that burnout. And then it's how we deal with that. Some people change professions. Some people find someone to talk to about how to manage and react to those stresses. There's so many apps now for meditation that you can do a 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute meditation, and studies show that helps. Step away, go to a quiet place, and just take some deep breaths in and out for a minute. And I've tried it myself when I'm stressed, and I'm like, this really does work. It really does work, because you just free your mind, get that oxygen in and out, and it can make a difference.
It can. I can remember a couple of weeks ago, my daughter was hospitalized for, she went into DKA with diabetes. And so my daughter was like, oh, Ma, I think you need to take her to the emergency room, because she kept throwing up. She had strep throat and she just got sicker and sicker. And so my whole house, the girls were sick. And so I was getting ready to take her to the emergency room like 3 a.m. in the morning. And so when I went into the room, I just got really queasy. And I was like, because it stressed me, because I didn't want to go to the emergency room. And I was just like, I had to stop, take a deep breath. I had to pray. I'm like, okay, Lord, I need you to give me strength. So I got to take my baby to this emergency room. I don't want to go in there queasy, weak, and then they have to hospitalize me while I'm in there trying to make sure she's well. And from that moment, I didn't feel queasy. I was able to take her, get her in there, and although they admitted her and got her back to where she needed to be, um, it wasn't stressful once I got there because they were on it. When I say these people's, the doctors, the nurses, they were on it. They was working so quick, and they ended up transferring her to Lori's. And when I got there, like just even the ride over there to get there, everybody was just on it, so polite. Just so if they had been burnt out, I would have showed because they probably would have been short with me. It would have been all the questions I was asking. They probably would have been like, okay, here she go. Okay. Just wait, give us a moment. But no, it was like a really peaceful experience, because I'm a mother and I'm worried for her. It's a critical situation. So, they made sure that everything was calm, that I didn't stress. And I remember the nurse telling me, lay down, go to sleep, take a nap, relax, go get some food because, you're going to be busy up in the morning talking to doctors and stuff. So you need to get your rest. We don't want you to be stressed out. So.
Yeah. And you were having an acute stress reaction there, right? Because once you feel like that and that epinephrine or adrenaline and cortisol kick in, then it makes you queasy. People have loose bowels, they get acid reflux, all of that's part of that acute reaction, right? And then you sort of recognize that and said, okay, what do I need to do to react differently to this stress? And then from there, the experience was different and better in itself, because if you had gone into that situation still upset and anxious and nervous and all of that, it would have affected the communication you even had with the healthcare providers, right? So you did a great job sort of managing that acute stress event.
Yeah, I was just like, Lord, I do not want to go, but for her and for her life, I knew I had to get there. So, and then I had I had my other two that I still had to worry about. So although I'm a mother worrying about this one, my mom had to remind me, you still have two kids at home. Although you're there, but you still have two kids at home. She's like, the nurses are there. They're going to watch over her. They're going to make sure she's okay. And I'm just like, I stayed there till like maybe midnight. And then I told the nurse, I got to go home. I got two kids, young at home. I'll be back early in the morning before the doctors get here to talk to the doctors. But she was like, I got her. I got her.
Good.
And, my daughter told me, Ma, she was in here. She came in, she watched over me, and it gave me the comfort that I was able to go home and not have to stress about something happening to her while I'm gone or whatever. My mom's like, no, she's in good hands. So
yeah.
Good.
So, you can't go wrong with Laurie's children.
That's what they was trying to send me somewhere else, and I said no. Can you transfer her to Laurie's? Yes, I already know. That's why I said let's go there. Lisa, I don't know if I read this or not. She said my heart goes out to those families. It's important to protect your mind and your energy.
Yes.
It really is. Because then you'll be stressing for no reason, like taking on other people's worries that you really don't have to.
Right.
So we need to shield and protect our kids from certain things, cut off these devices and have some face-to-face time. We don't really do it that often because it's just so easy for them we at the dinner table, everybody got their phones. I make sure I'm like, all the phones in the middle of the table, face down, and let's talk and eat. So,
can we talk to each other?
Yeah. And although we don't sit down all the time, I try to do it once a month because it's so hard. Once a month on a Sunday, they know, okay, we're sitting down, we're putting our phones down, and let's catch up on what everybody's doing.
That's right. Yeah. Well, we're all busy, but when you get the chance to get together, try to have some of that conversation, which kids today just don't have. They'll be sitting right next to each other and texting each other.
Right. That's
true. So you got up here the digestive problems. Yep. Stress can affect the speed at which the food moves through your intestines, right? So you sometimes can get loose bowels, you get more fluid moving through, and all of that is part of that sort of stress reaction. People will sometimes have that like right before a big speech, right? They're feeling really stressed and
That's me.
They start to feel queasy, butterflies, loose bowels. It's all part of that. But again, stress is good on the short term because you get focused, you're more alert, you can get the thing done that needs to get done. It's that everyday chronic stress that causes the problems.
Yeah, and you mentioned it compromises our immune system. So I was reading somewhere and it said something about we have these cells in our bodies, Dr. Michelle, that scans our bodies for cancer cells. And they're supposed to go and destroy these cells. But when your immune system is compromised, is suppressed, then those cells don't do what they're supposed to do. And I always say that stress caused my cancer. It contributed to it because at the time I was depressed and my immune system was compromised. So it had a chance to, okay, her immune system is suppressed, let's go. And those scans wasn't doing what they supposed to do.
Yeah, because we think about it when we say, oh, stress decreases our immune system. We think about, oh, I'm going to catch a cold or, those type of things. But it's beyond that because you're absolutely right, right? Part of cancer is sort of multifactorial, but our bodies have everything in them to keep us healthy, right? But when it's out of balance because of the immune system is low, right? Then these other things can flourish and take over. We talk about cancer, we talk about diabetes, heart disease, all of that is part of the chronic stress and the cortisol that floats around and this heightened adrenaline that floats around in our bodies and causes hypertension and diabetes, maybe linked to cancer, and just, getting a cold on the simpler level. But inflammation causes our arthritis and muscle aches. And so it all ties together. When we think about what can we do to keep ourselves healthy, we always talk about, make sure you're exercising and eating right, but also make sure you're managing your stress. Exercise is a big, big way, right? I can tell you that as a caregiver to my mom, I was working full time, mom, wife, everything. The one thing I never let go of was my exercise. If it was just to walk on the treadmill or walk outside, it was so important. And exercise releases natural endorphins. You get that exercise high. We always talk about before I used to run, I don't run anymore, but I would wonder, why are people running and it's cold outside, but they run because they feel great afterwards, right? And you're like, it seems so painful. But when I would just run 3 miles, I felt so much better afterwards. My mood was better, and so I can't stress this piece enough. If you are able to, all I say is just walk, get outdoors. Say you're going to walk 20 minutes, walk 30 minutes, whatever you can do. Better to walk outside under the sun and vitamin D when we have it, because that's also a great stress reliever. Studies show that walking or being in nature reduces our stress level, right? So I love to walk on the trail, by my house and just be outdoors, see a deer or something. It's definitely number one, as it is here, to reduce your stress. Spend time in nature. They have done so many studies about people who garden, people who walk outdoors. It really, really reduces your cortisol and your stress levels. If you can get to a beach and just sit, and we're so in a high, pressure, we got to go sort of lifestyle that sometimes it's hard to take time. But the time management piece is key. Take time for yourself, because as you said, you've got kids, you've got a child who has other needs, and you've got work, and you've got this, and you're like, the last thing I need to do is just sit down and do nothing. Right? It's the last thing I'm going to do, but it's important to do it. It is. Make yourself a priority. Figure out where in your day you can get that time. And this mindfulness piece is key. We talked about being aware of when the stress comes, like you were when you took your daughter, like Lisa is when she's in the car and has to drive, and then use that to take some deep breaths, listen to the apps that are out there. You can put it on white noise, the crashing of the waves, all of that makes a difference. But we put it down on the priority list, right? But it's important because you're going to feel better so that you can manage all these things that are going on. And I can't stress enough the importance of talking to someone. If you need a wellness coach, if you need a therapist to talk to understand how to manage your stress, please do that, right? As I said, we started with saying we all have stress. Okay. Some of us don't know the best tools to use to manage your stress, or if it's someone that you live with that's causing your stress and you see them every day, right? What do I do? A therapist or a coach can help you understand, right? What can you do? Does it mean that you go for that walk for the 30 minutes? Does it mean that, you get that person into therapy with you? But we have to just know that if you're feeling like that, there are things that we have that can help. But we have to know that that's an option. Spend time with friends and family. When we were in COVID, we couldn't see anybody. People were isolated and stressed out, right? And so if your family doesn't stress you out, spend time with go and see people. Studies show that too. Those people who socialize with their friends and their girlfriends, a couple of times a week, they feel less stress. I was reading a study that said people who volunteer tend to live longer because they're being social and they're also helping other people, which tends to give us a sense of worth and helps to lower that stress level. So absolutely, that's one thing I try to do now is spend time with friends and family more.
Lisa says she loves family times when they get together each Sunday and go out for lunch or dinner.
Good. Yes. Find and some people they may not have a large family. I don't have a large family, but I try to spend time with them, or I've made it a conscious effort this year to reach out to the friends I haven't talked to in a long time. I'm going to schedule some time to get with you for coffee or whatever that might be. If it's the walk on the trail, right, for 30 minutes, let's do that. So
I heard this lady on Instagram, this doctor on Instagram, and she talked about exercise. And she said 30 minutes of exercise cuts your mortality down 20%. 15 minutes of exercise cut it down. I think she said 10%, and then 10 minutes after that is like 5 to 7%. So when you talked about the exercise piece, I really do believe that exercise piece, because just when I was going through my cancer diagnosis, I kept exercising the whole time. Even if I could just walk, exhausted, fatigued, I would still just walk around the track by my house just to get some type of exercise in. And I remember the doctor asking me, like, what do you do? Do you exercise? I'm like, yes. And she was like, keep exercising.
Keep doing it.
So I know that it works. You just have to start where you are and do what's best for you. You don't have to compete with anybody else. Just get moving.
No, it's not a competition. It is if all you can do, and I would tell patients all the time, if all you can do is walk around this block or walk down to the corner and back, do that. Because you'll find eventually you'll be able to walk around the whole block. When I started walking on the trail I started years ago with my neighbor. The trail is 3.6 miles. And we would just walk it because we could not run it. We would walk it. And then we would just say, you know what, we're going to run from here to that tree. And we would do that. We'd walk the rest. And we had small goals. That was the point. But by the end of the summer, we could run the whole thing by setting small, attainable goals, right? Don't set something and then you get discouraged and you just stop altogether. We didn't start out saying we're going to run this whole 3.5 miles because we would have stopped, right? We said we're going to walk and then we're going to run this much, and then it grew and it grew. So wherever you are, start moving. And that's one of the things I started telling patients too. Sometimes I don't even want to call it exercise. I just want to say, get moving. Get moving. Don't sit in front of the TV, right? Because studies show too that it's the movement. It's walking a little further in the parking lot. It's just standing and movement, gardening, go outside and do things. If you find that you have sat down for a whole hour and really haven't done a thing, we want you to get moving.
Absolutely. So I have a couple of myths really fast, or I should say fact or myth. This one says no symptoms, no stress.
Oh, not necessarily true, right? Because you can have stress and you don't recognize the symptoms, right? And sometimes that cortisol is floating around in our bloodstream and we feel like we're just managing just fine. I could probably relate to that, right?
That's true. Lisa said you could do repeat line dancing. Oh, and receive a good workout. Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's on my to-do list. I want to learn how to the newest line dances and stepping. So that's on my to-do list for this year.
My to-do list was skating. Like I started taking skating lessons in January.
Ooh,
And so I go every Tuesday and I enjoy
good.
it.
Don't you love it? Oh yeah, I need to put that on my list.
Yes, it's so fun. It's so
Yeah.
fun. Another one says stress is everywhere. You can't do anything about it.
Stress can be everywhere, but you can do something about it, right? There's always places, as we talked about, driving, wherever, but you can do something about it in how you react to those things that you think are stressful to you.
Lisa says she loved both the skating and the line dancing.
Nice.
My last one is stress is always bad for you.
No, not always, right? Because we talked about that acute stress that is good, that alerts us, fight or flight, right? I was just in a car accident or I see a car coming towards me, I can react to it, right? So that's good stress. It's that chronic stress that's bad for us.
Awesome. So she says she likes skating too.
Oh, I'm going to have to put that on my list.
It's so much fun. I love it. Dr. Michelle, thank you so much. As always, you always come with all of the gems, and I enjoy it every time. I know if you haven't listened live, be kind, rewind, get your pen and your pad out, and use the information for you or pass it on to someone else that you know that may need the information. Caring is sharing, or the sharing is caring.
Right.
So I want you to give us some words of wisdom, Dr. Michelle, about the impact of stress on your body, as well as let people know how to stay connected with you.
Yes. So we know that there's always stress that we are confronted with on a daily basis, but it is what we do with that stress, right? Good stress, something happens, you're in a car accident, but the bad stress, we want you to recognize that you may be under stress and then learn the things that you can do to help manage your stress that we talked about. Exercising, connecting with friends, mindfulness, and then talking to someone, if that's a therapist that you need to talk to how to better manage your stress, but find creative ways to manage it, because untreated, unmanaged stress can lead to the inflammation in the body, which can cause diabetes, cancer, muscle pain, and all of those medical ailments. We talked about migraines and chronic headaches and all of those things. So recognize that we are under stress, but there are things that we can do to help manage it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle. I appreciate you. I will get Lisa the last comment of the day, and she says some stress makes us do the stuff that we have been procrastinating.
That's that good stress. Yeah, that's me too. I tend to be a procrastinator until that stress hits me, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me get it done. So
yes. Thanks again, Dr. Michelle. I appreciate you. Oh, I'm sorry.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Coming up next at 7 p.m. on Intellectual Radio is The People Show with Mark Wallace and Charles Thomas. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. I will leave you with these words of wisdom. When it comes to stress, we all have a choice. You either deal with stress or stress deals with you. So start minimizing stress today. Join me next Monday at 6 p.m. right here on Intellectual Radio. As always, thank you for tuning in to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we are changing lives one warrior at a time.
To find out more about Warriors Talk, follow at Warriors Talk, the number 1, on all social media outlets, and Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell on YouTube. Please join us next week and every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on intellectualradio.com for Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell, where we encourage, educate, and empower you into action.